We now have details regarding that near-fatal stabbing. The female victim rescued by a neighbor in Perham, Minnesota on Saturday. Cyrus Lee Olson, address listed as Fergus Falls, has now been charged with first-degree attempted murder, second-degree attempted murder, first-degree attempted criminal sexual conduct, and assault, first-degree bodily harm, and assault, second-degree dangerous weapon, and obstruct the legal process. A reading from the statement of probable cause, the prosecutor's rendition of what happened. Quote, on 2/7 Saturday, 10:16 a.m., Otter Tail County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call about a stabbing at Perham at 507 Northwest 4th Avenue. Otter Tail County deputies responded to the multi-unit transitional housing complex and later met with Keith Sleen, who stated that a female neighbor, the 45-year-old female victim, was stabbed by another neighbor, Cyrus Lee Olson, the defendant. Sleen explained during the 911 call that he was locked in his apartment and thought he would be next. He stated the victim had been stabbed, saw blood, and that he observed the defendant holding what appeared to be a knife. He further stated that he believed the defendant had left the victim's apartment but was still in the area. Upon arrival, deputies were escorted by Sleen to the victim's apartment. They observed that the exterior window had been broken out with glass remnants shattered. They also observed fresh blood inside the apartment on the floor, bed sheets, window seal, and door. They also observed blood splatter on the ceiling and blanket on the floor. In addition, signs of a struggle as reported by Sleen. The victim was not located in her apartment, so deputies were concerned that she was in the defendant's apartment. Deputies knocked and announced their presence, but were met with verbal resistance from the defendant. Deputies began forcing entry into the apartment as the defendant attempted to barricade the door prohibiting entry. Entry was ultimately gained, and the defendant was located inside. Deputies attempted to arrest Olson, but he pulled his arms underneath his body, clenched his fists, and continually fought and resisted. Eventually, Olson was forcefully taken into custody with the assistance of Canine Jocko. A bystander informed deputies that she located the victim in another apartment, lying in the threshold of the doorway and in need of medical assistance. Deputy observed a significant amount of blood on her face, neck, and her hair was soaked in blood. The victim stated that Olson had stabbed her in the neck. She was transported to Perham Health by EMS, later transported to Sanford Health in Fargo due to the extent of her injuries. Deputies spoke with Olson, who said he was in bed sleeping the whole time and did not know what happened. The deputies learned that another tenant of the units reported the defendant came to her unit approximately 20 minutes prior to the assault of the victim and stuck his head into her open window before she confronted him and told him to leave. A detective responded to Perham Health and spoke with emergency room physician, who stated the victim sustained numerous injuries with stab wounds between her eyebrows, to the back of the neck at the base of her skull, to her left abdomen, left hip, upper buttocks, and an apparent defensive wound through her left hand. The victim reported the defendant was, quote, going to have sex with me, otherwise he was going to rape me, unquote. She explained the defendant came into her room, stomped on her head, then stabbed her, stating he was going to have sex with her. Shortly thereafter, the victim was intubated, and further statement was not able to be obtained. Sergeant met with Sleen, the neighbor, who explained that moments before the assault, he'd been standing outside his apartment speaking with the victim, defendant, Olson, and another tenant about a disturbance at their building the previous evening. He stated that he resides in the adjoining apartment to the victim and that they share a common interior wall. Sleen stated that after that discussion, the other tenant walked away and he went back inside his apartment. The victim and the defendant, Olson, were still standing outside, and about 30 seconds later, he heard the victim screaming for him to help her. Sleen heard her yelling, "He's killing me." Sleen went outside to help, but her door was locked. He slid open her window, moved the shade, and could see the defendant, Olson, standing over the victim, striking her around the chest or upper body with something. He yelled at the defendant, Olson, to stop and challenged him to fight him instead. Olson never said anything to him, but he walked toward the window, slid it shut, and locked it. At that point, Sleen kicked through the window with his boot, breaking the glass away. He then threw 2 chairs through the window, trying to stop the defendant, but he continued stabbing the victim. He attempted to go through the window and cut his hand on broken glass, then went to call 911. When Sleen went to make the call, he saw the defendant, Olson, walk past his apartment. Sleen further stated the defendant attempted to enter the apartments of 2 other females in the building at about 1:20 a.m. that morning. Detective and other deputies executed search warrants at the residences of the victim and Olson. They located the victim's cell phone inside Olson's unit and observed blood in the sink and the interior door. They also noted dried blood on the defendant, Olson's pants and left hand, and an injury to his right hand. Inside the victim's apartment, they located a pair of purple-handled scissors on a counter near the sink that contained blood and long hair strands consistent with the victim's hair. Detectives spoke with the defendant, Olson, at the Ottertail County Detention Center after reading a Miranda warning. Olson did not request an attorney and voluntarily consented to a DNA swab. However, the defendant stated that he was not willing to provide a statement at that time. On February 8th, the detective learned the victim relayed information to her daughter with the use of a whiteboard that said, quote, "He wanted sex, but I said no," unquote. I'm Neil Carlson reporting for iNewZ.TV.